Well, hello there. Good morning and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet. My name's Angela. I'm also known as Artwyrd around the internet. And amongst other things, I design colouring books for adults. And I just love doing art and trying new things out. What I do on my channel really is to share ideas with art, the kinds of ways I work, and just inspiration hopefully for you, and perhaps step-by-step methods. Today I'm going to actually start creating my Christmas cards this year. I'm very late because just everything's just been so on, but as I tend not to send many because I give the money instead to charities rather than into the pockets of big companies, as it were, where I can do some good, and cards only end up getting put in the bin. But for people who are close and special, I tend to make cards as little works of art, I suppose, that are kept. So, well, possibly not, I don't know, but I like to do that. So I think I've got a wonderful opportunity that they'll still get there before Christmas Day, or not, in which case people know me. So people who I do this to know me. So there's that. So there's a couple of things I want to share as well about that. And also I haven't done a video for a couple of days because my stress levels have been stupid. Between an optician's appointment, a medical appointment, and not feeling too good after that. It's just not been, my brain just hasn't been focused or able to do anything. I haven't even been drawing the way I normally would. So with no further ado, let's make a start. I mentioned, excuse my arm, that I had in the post, and I think I might have started to use these the other day, but they came. And I've got a set of Liquitex acrylic inks, not a full set. I've got the metallic gold, copper, bronze, and a black and a white, which aren't metallic, in the set. And I bought some dip pens, and I remember saying I couldn't find my other ones. I bet you they'll turn up as soon as these arrive. Yep, they did. I remembered where I put them as soon as these arrived. Gutted, but nevertheless it's fine. And of course I've had to try things out. So this was one I did yesterday, and I haven't done anything more with it. It's on a piece of that coloured Canson paper, just working with different nibs, surprisingly. Excuse me. And just trying to get a feel for them. I have done quite a bit of work where I've overfilled the nib and I've had sploshes of colour, it's all like big glops and so on. So it is really working out how the nibs work, the feel you need, the pressure you need, how much you need to load them with ink, and also finding the nib that I like. Some of them are very hard, very scratchy, and don't seem to work smoothly on paper. I've cleaned them, I've sanded the tips, and they still just don't want to work for me. So it's not meant to be, but others do. And this is something else I just tried again on another piece of the coloured Imagine paper from Canson, the mixed media paper. And this is with the bronze, and it's got this lovely sort of like muted coppery tone to it. Again, it's finding the pens, and I did actually use a brush in some places. Over here I filled these in with a brush, and I did this with a brush because again I couldn't find the nibs that I liked. But I've persevered. This is something I did this morning whilst trying out several nibs, and you can see some of them barely leave a mark unless I press really hard, and then look what happens, blush. And others are so soft, they become very bold very quickly, but I'm happy with that because it will teach me a lighter hand. So I'm hoping to use those today, possibly. If not, I'm giving you a heads up for the future. What I've got here is a piece of what paper is it? It's this one. It's Botanical Ultra Smooth watercolour paper. It's hot pressed, which means it's very smooth. It's white or near white. You can see there's just a hint of creaminess about it, because hot pressed watercolour papers tend to be not so white. And I want to give it some background colour before I start drawing on it. And I'm going to go with some greens today. So I'm just getting my makeup brushes. There's my greeny brush here. And this one I'm using, if you're interested, this is Bundled Sage. So I'm just going to give some colour to it. I'm not worried if there's blobs like there. I don't know why I've got a blob there. I suspect I've dropped some water or something on the paper while I was cleaning my pens, and made a bit of a mess there, but it's fine because it will disappear, adds interest to the background. So a couple of fairly quick swipes here, and I'm particularly paying attention to the edges so I can darken the edges just that little bit. Okay, so that's quite nice. Now I do want another one, I think. I may add a hint of pine needles, but I want to be very, very light with this because it is quite a dark colour. I think it'll just add that hint of pine needly goodness, because it is a bluey green. Oh, she says very light hand, and I've got a really dark corner, so hey, let's go with dark corners, is it? Actually, that works quite nicely. I'm no expert at this. You just go with the flow with things like this. It works. So that'll be fine. Sort of like a vignette almost has been created with the darker green around. And while I've got that out, I'll pop that brush back in its pot. Bit of cut and dry foam. You know what I'm going to do here, I think. I'm just going to give myself those edges, and today instead of using brown I'm going to keep with the green theme, and rather than use different green I'm going to stick with the pine needles and just really darken that up a bit. Look, I've got something going on here, I don't know what it is. It's fine though. Again, it is what it is and it'll be fine. It will all work out because these things will all become part of the background, not the foreground. No need to be particularly fussy about them. Now, do I want to do some stenciling or stamping? Oh, I think so. Let me have a look. Let me have a quick look in here because I've got these stamps. So I'm going to use this one, which is this is a text stamp. It's from a company called Indigo Blue. I don't know if it's still available. I'm not very good at looking things up for you like that, because I never know what I'm going to use in each video. But there are many script stamps out there available. And for this one, I'm going to stamp off a lot of the ink so I can just use the ghostlier prints just on the background. I'm just brushing it over. I don't want perfect prints, I want imperfect. Just like that. That'll be lovely. I think that's enough. That adds a little bit of background. So that's everything done as far as distress inks are done. Oops. Put the cover back on the stamp and pop these away. And all's good in the world now. Mostly, well, all's good in the world here. Now then, I'd normally leave this to dry for a bit, so I don't know how this is going to fare. I'm just going to clear my desk just a tad, pop things back where they belong, like those blending brushes. Find my glasses so I can see what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to draw directly in gold ink today. I'm going to reserve the gold ink for highlights and perhaps some very delicate patterns I'll see. But I'm going to start by drawing a border around this tile. This paper is about 4 inches square. I actually got 4 of these out of one of the sheets from that book, and I also got 2 3¼ inch tiles, which are a bit, you know, this is a bit bigger than a Zentangle tile, the other one's a little bit smaller. And I had this much left over, plus a long thin strip. Is that 2 long very thin strips, because I trimmed the width of the paper down to 8 inches first before cutting everything else out, and then because it's ring bound, the top was lost. If it had been you know, sort of like the kinds of binding where they're glued together at the top, I wouldn't have had that. I'd have been able to get, I wouldn't have been able to get 2 more 4 inches, but I might have got 3½ inches or so. And I try to make the most use of the paper I have. And I'm going to make this a double border here. I'll pick something up on my finger. The perils of arting and crafting. I'm not too worried if it's perfect or not. I'm bound to put something in here. Oh, picked up a bit of a thread from the distress ink pad, which is fine. Got rid of it now. There we go. So that looks nice. Now then, I am going to use a pencil because this is going on a card. I am going to want to find, well, roughly the centre. I'm just going to pop some diagonal lines, corner to corner with the ruler, and very faint pencil lines. They cross in the centre. It's not the centre I want. It's I want to draw a central square. And I think I'll draw it here. And these lines, if I use them as the guide for the corners and try and keep these lines about equidistant from here, I should end up with something that is, oh, a wonky square, of course, because doing this with a ruler would have been so much better. But it's roughly squarish shapes. But again, everything, all the imperfections stand out, don't they, when everything is bare and blank like this. And it's when you add all the patterns and textures. And I'm going to put a very thin, narrow border inside these. Like that. Okay, now then, I'm going to split this into 4. So I get 4 squares there. Now I've got choices. I want to use this like that, and I want to create holly leaves like this. So I could have them going into the middle and perhaps a collection of berries in the middle, which would look quite cute, or I could have them going diagonally. I think I'll do them with the berries in the middle on this one. So remember, I'm going to do a series of cards. So that'll be quite nice. And I'll draw the diagonals in next. And then, got a bit of a mess there. Then we'll do the holly leaves. So I could start there, but I think it would look a bit odd. So I'm going to imagine that I'm starting from the corner. I'm going up, making a weird kind of M shape, or W. And it looks then like the leaves are tucked behind the berries. Now with this side, I'm going to try to bring this curve up so it's roughly level with this one, and then fit the others in as I can. I find that's quite a nice kind of thing to do. It seems to, I think it's something I do unconsciously, except there I just noticed that I was doing it, so I thought I'd share it with you. Okay, so the other side is not so critical, I suppose, because we can make this side match up. So where these curves will, where the points would touch if I allowed them to, I'm making them the same height. So none of these leaves are identical, but they all still work. Now then, I'm going to put some lines in for, you know, the veins, but I'm going to do this with an 01, and rather than just single lines, what I'm doing is I'm drawing a solid line and putting 2 dots at the end, and I'm curving this line slightly, so curving it towards the tip of the leaf rather than the base, the stem. And up here I'll only get perhaps 1 dot in and perhaps just dots there, and that just gives that shadow. I'm going to do it on the same side all the way round. And these patterns will be different all the way round. Now if this is something you'd like to see next year, sort of a series of Christmas card designs that you could draw yourself if you don't already, or ideas for using them, then just let me know and I'll try to be more organised next year. I can't promise it. I think everything's been derailed this year by adorable dogs. It's been a bit of a mammoth project, that one, in ways. It's nearly done though. I should have all the templates finished now. It's probably tomorrow, fingers crossed, as long as they don't collapse again this afternoon. I don't mean literally collapse, as in my brain becomes foggy and fuzzy and I need a nap. So that looks nice. I like that. I like the I like that contrast. Now then, I'm also going to go for contrast on the plain side. Choices. I could just put hatched lines in there. That would be nice and simple. I could put print on or tipple or some other small sort of filler pattern in. I think little circles would get confused with this. I think I may go just with some cross hatching. So I've got dark in the leaf, one side of the leaf, the opposite side, that darkness is behind the other side of the leaf, which I think is quite a nice balance and a way to bring things out, because that's really quite nice. I think so. The next design or next pattern, next one I draw, I could do this differently. I could make this huge. I could make it, repeat the pattern across the whole tile, which would be quite fun. And of course I can also scan these in and I could print them out as well. There's also the option of having them, if I'd If I sent an awful lot or needed an awful lot or a fair number, I've done this in the past where I've used something like Vistaprint or so on to print batches of them. And they always work out lovely because you can upload the scanned in image or photograph to their website and have it done. It does work out more expensive than, you know, buying cards in a shop, but then they're unique because they're mine. It's actually quite nice to spend some time doing this. I've missed this over the last couple of days, but I just haven't had that ability to focus. And when I've been alert, there's been other things I've had to cope with and deal with. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'll get back into the rhythm of making videos again and sharing stuff. And in the new year, I'll be looking for any Tangle pattern challenges. I believe on, is it 7F5R? They have a fragment challenge throughout January. So I'm definitely going to take part in that because that will involve me looking at things in different ways and creating variations, which is fun. So there we are, it's my central motif. And I like that. I may be very tempted to colour this side gold, the plain side, and perhaps the plain side of the leaf gold. I'm not sure. I may end up just using gold in borders rather than adding too much in the way of highlights. Okay, I've now got to think what I'm going to do round here. And I think what I'm going to do, look at that, managed to get gold paint on my hands. I kid you not. I should not be allowed loose with ink or anything. I kid you not. It's on my desk as well, but it comes off. It's acrylic. It's easy enough to clean off a plastic surface generally. Okay, so I've put a border in there because I'm trying to think what I would like to do here, and what would go nicely with this. I don't want to do things that will take away from this particularly, I think. But I do want a series of borders, but I think I've got a cunning plan. I think I've got a cunning plan. No, I don't want to. I was thinking of doing a border here where I used holly leaves again, but in a zigzag form. I don't know. Let me have a look. I think I'm going to put some distinctly leafy shapes here on the corners because I can, and because I think they'll look quite nice and pleasant there. And I can put a couple of berries on either side just to nestle in and fill those little spaces up there. But they're an opportunity for me to use the metallics as well. I think I'll be using a brush rather than a pen as I think about it. These leaves, I'm going to draw that central line in. And I'm going to pop shadow on the same side as the holly leaves. This time I'm not going to fuss and fiddle around with lines and dots. I'm just going to put very thin lines close together. So I think that would be quite nice. There we go. So that's beginning to look lovely. Well, I think so. All right. Now I'm going to actually do the same perhaps hopefully a bit better than the first one in the centre. And again, popping some little berries in on either side of the leaves. And then adding central lines. And the shadow on the same side as before. Consistency around here. It forms part of the pattern, so it's independent of light source or anything else. So that works quite nicely, I think. It's beginning to look a bit like a star, a leafy star. Okay, now I've got to decide what I put in between these. I think I'm going to use an aura around them. I'm not going to make much of an effort to go around those little berries. I think they can be what they can be. They're very small. Now, this may have been a complete and total mistake, but I won't know until later. I just know I want these leaves to be separate from whatever else I do here. But this breaks up this border here just a little bit. And I think I may have made a mistake, but am I thinking? But maybe not. So I'm trying to think what I can pop in here. Wondering about crescent moons perhaps, or just carrying on to all of these. It's so hard to know what to do. It really is. Or do I go to one of my favourites? If I'm going to do one of my favourites, I do need that there. I think I'm going to pop some of these crescent moon shapes in. Because I think, yeah, I'm really not at all sure about what I'm doing here. I think it's one of these cases where I just have to go with my instincts and just see what happens. Because at the moment I don't actually know how this is going to work out. I really don't. So on each one of these I'm trying my best to get 4 auras in before I get to the sensual bits. Oh, and there you are. I really didn't stop and think, but I can always sneak another one in. I don't know why I need them exactly the same. Perhaps it's because I may go back and add colour and I don't want them all to be roughly the same if I'm going to add colour in stripes. But I think I might be getting a bit ambitious there. I think I'm going to stick to mostly monochrome with highlights. That actually isn't too bad. It's not too shabby. So I think I'm going to that will work nicely actually. That gives a nicely frilly edge as well. It'll work nicely. And it helps to suddenly the imperfections seem to become part of the pattern. Imperfections, unevenness. Things you think, oh, I wish I hadn't put that line there, or that was a bit wobbly. Suddenly become all part of you know, the whole thing. Just one little part left here. I say one little part, one side is what I meant. Really doesn't take long. That actually has worked out okay, and there was me thinking, oh, what was I doing? And this often happens. Well, it certainly does with me. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pop some more berries at the ends of these leaves, because that would be a nice place to anchor some outlines, which is quite nice. It gives a more formal feel to everything. Well, I think so. And that defines that particular layer as well. I've got some tea here that's gone cold, but it's tea, and tea is all important. Okay, now then, I've got this section here to do, so I've got a fairly dense pattern there, and I'd rather like something that's a bit more open and or perhaps a bit more area. I could do that in two ways, because I could use this, carry on using this pen with a more open pattern, or I could use a finer pen. I have got the 01 brown there, but I'm going to pop that out of the way because I'm going to stick to all black. Okay, so what could I do there? You know what I might like to do is I am going to do this here, where these sensual leaves are pointing out. I'm going to pop a square, but I'm also going to create a square around it. There is method in my madness, honest. We'll see. There we go. So what I'm going to do is with the sensual, so I've essentially got this, if you imagine this in pencil, I'm going to use this square as a guide to draw tall, thin triangles, and they create star shapes, and I'm going to put some other stars, little triangles in there to create another star shape. Simple, light and airy. And I'm wondering if I'd made these square, I can't fit four, I could fit four in if I redrew all of this, but I want these stars sensual, so I think we'll have these They're a bit wibbly wobbly. It's really not important. And I'm trying to make all the triangles roughly the same length. So this is vaguely symmetrical, hopefully. The square here is a little bit smaller than the other ones, so I'm just using it as a guide. This one's a bit bigger, but that's fine. So there's the basic stars, and I am going to pop some triangles in the other sides. So it's almost imagining there's a diagonal point, but you can see this one's off on a wonk a bit. But it's off on a wonk, and I think this is okay. And again, this is another opportunity for the use of metallics. Now I'm going to be using most probably the metallic inks, but I do have metallic watercolours as well. Jelly rolls would work, or metallic gel pens. So that looks quite nice. I'm almost tempted to leave it like that, but I'm not going to, because I think what I want to do here, do I want to create a box around the stars, or shall I connect? I'm so tempted to leave it just like this. I know what I'm going to do. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and you're going to have to give me a mo. You'll hear some noises, but I'll be back instantly. Well, almost instantly, because I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out of my little collection here of which colour's that? It's finding, where's the colour sagebrush? That's the one I want. I have got here one of the Kuretake Zig, one of these writers, and I've got sagebrush. These are pigments, they're fine liners, and they are they're permanent, and so it ties in nicely with the colours of these. It will show up enough, but it won't be as dark as the black, so it will fade more into the background. Again, you can use absolutely anything that you have. You don't have to go out and buy these. I've got these in my stash. They've been in my stash for a long time. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to get rid of my pencil lines while I'm here. Now then, how am I going to add pattern and texture to this? Again, I could put some kind of regular pattern in there. I could put lots of circles in. That would be a bit tedious to draw. But I think I'm going to make use of the points on these stars. And I'm going to make sure I do this the same all the way around, I think, to begin with. So things look like they've been planned. The rest of it can all go as it needs to. I'm going to do the same with the bottom bits. Leave a gap between them, I think. Okay, and then that side will go up and the other side will go down. So up, down. I'm thinking about the way the line goes towards up and towards down to begin with, from the point upwards, from the point downwards. And that then creates these little areas like this. They're actually like little heart shapes, which is quite cute. And I can fill these in here with some more, just because we don't want them left out. Didn't expect those heart shapes to appear, but there are some little heart shapes in here, which is lovely. You see, there's a heart there and a heart there, so that's quite surprising. And then this then can transform into print on, and I'm going to do these quite large and open because I want the pattern to be quite large and airy. And as I'm likely to add some colour and shading to this, these will disappear into the background even more, hopefully. Should be fairly quick and easy to fill in because I'm drawing quite big spirals here. And spirals are always lovely. The size is likely to vary somewhat, and that's fine by me. So I've got some smaller ones closer there, and that's all right. They're hand drawn after all. Part of me thinks I shouldn't have made such a fuss about these ones because I want to add, I'm going to go back and fill those spaces in with more spirals while I'm at it, because these just feel a little bit weird with the space in there, but that's okay. Until you start adding patterns, I think you don't really know what you need to do, whether things need to be added to, and you can always go back and add things. The one thing you can't do when you're working in pen is take things away easily, but you can add. Which is always the fun part of all of this. This colour actually works really quite nicely because it feels like it's a combination of the pine needles and the bundled sage. So it tones in really quite well with the distress ink, which is what I wanted for this particular border, I think. Part of me is thinking it would have been quite nice to do this here and then have a darker border out on the outside, but the problem then would be that I've got these stars, which I decided to do individual ones, whereas I could have done a border of them, which would have been fun. But there's other cards, other opportunities to do that, other designs. So I'll probably do another one tomorrow with you. And instead of holly, I might do mistletoe in the middle, or ivy. Ivy would work in, they both work in a similar way as this to create that central motif. And I think that'll be quite nice. So nearly done. And as you're watching this in real time, you can see it really doesn't take that long to do. It looks like it's going to, but it doesn't. And that's actually quite nice because it has darkened this layer, but that light colour is still showing through. It's going to be really rather lovely, I think, if you don't think it is already. Again, I'll be learning lessons from this one so that I can put those into practice of, you know, further little designs. Now, I have got in my stash plenty of card blanks, but they're easy enough to make if you wish. I'm going to put this hopefully on a 6-inch square blank. I think I have some, and they might only be 5 inches. Either way, I know I've definitely got some, and I think I've got some that are craft paper or craft card, so they're that earthy brown colour. Now that I actually am really quite pleased with this so far. I've got the outer border to do, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do there. 46 minutes. What I will do is I will pop in the details. Let me get a brush. Oh yeah, I have brushes. I have multiples. Right, I've got an 00 here. I'm going to need a very small brush, and I am going to just wet it first and clean it of any dust that it may have accumulated while it's been in storage. I've got some scuzzy, look at that, scuzzy glittery kitchen cloth here. I'm giving the ink a good shake. It's got mica suspended in it, so you don't want to leave it sit for too long because the mica all settles to the bottom and you end up just with the ink in suspension. So I am going to see how is that. Just don't forget the brush was damp, so that'll be fine, I'm sure. I could do it with one of the dip pens, but I'm going to make a I'm not going to make a mess of this. I'll just do the ones in the corners perhaps, because I'm going to need a finer brush for some of the others, I think. Isn't a problem. I think I've got a 000 here somewhere. On different brands, I've got different sizes. Get away with some of the bigger ones. I might be alright. This goes over the black. I'm not too worried because I can go back and put the black in again. Oops. So this isn't my favourite brush. It's not in the best condition. It's really old. I've had this was probably for the best part of 20 years. I haven't seen them, this particular brand, for sale, because I did really like them one time. But then I discovered Pro Arts. Right, so there's that. That'll look lovely. I'm so tempted to do behind the okay, this is a 3.0, so I used this last night and they do surprisingly pick up quite a lot of ink. Let me just have a look. That's fine. You can get them even finer than this brush is, especially if you go looking for miniature brushes, for miniature painting, you know, for things like Warhammer or any kind of miniatures that people paint. Model, you know, Airfix models, they still do Airfix models of, you know, ships and planes and stuff. That was a big thing with my brothers when they were younger. They were into Airfix models in a big way. Loved making them and building them. That's what they'd spend their pocket money on. I tried making some sort of famous queens. You know, I had an Anne Boleyn, I think it was, and I just had no interest in it. But they used to ask me to paint the fiddly bits on their planes and so on when there was a lot of fiddly bits to do and patterns, and I quite enjoyed that. So looking back, that, you know, ability for fiddly bits has always been there. It's just that it took me many years to realise that I could, or to discover that it could be something of use, or not use, but something I could do and be good at, perhaps, or good enough at. Always good enough at. They're beginning to look really lovely. Now, I know from experiments I've done, and I did these the other day, that if I use chalk pastels to add colour and shadow, that won't affect these at all. But I just wanted to pop them in because I wanted to see how much I wanted. I think this will be enough, and I know holly berries are traditionally red, but I'm so tempted to do gold ones because I can. And keep it green and gold, because there won't be anything else red on here, that's the thing. So I do a very good job of rubbing out the pencil lines here, but they won't show through. Excuse me, it's that time of day. I always seem to sneeze. So at some point in the video, I never do the rest of the day. There we go. So very quickly painted. That is lovely, and I do think I am going to do the berries in gold as well, because I think that would just tie everything together beautifully. I was thinking about, I may do the border around the hollies in gold as well. I've got to watch where I put my hand now. I'm not going to bother trying to paint around these black dots because I can pop them back in afterwards if they don't show through. And I did want to do this border here as well, didn't I? So I think that would be quite nice. There we go. Perhaps my brush skills aren't as bad as I think they are. Well, not when it comes to filling in straight lines. That's lovely. That is actually looking... I'm now sniffling because I've sneezed. I don't know if you can hear in the background the noise. It's the it's rubbish collection day, recycling and household refuse day, so there'll be a series of lorries coming to collect various things from here. I think we get one for the household rubbish, household refuse, and then sort of like recycling, and then there's the food recycling. I'm not sure if they do the food and the others together or not, but we certainly get, excuse me, I'm just reaching for a tissue because this is annoying. Keep it real, eh, Angela? So that's looking good. Now the next question I'm going to consider is this outside rim. Do I do it gold as well? I think so, but no, I'm not going to chance it with. I could do it solid gold, but I could also do it with gold dots. But I think I'm going to leave that for today because I think I'll want to put some colour underneath that border because it is quite wide and it would be quite nice to have it. Let me just move that scuzzy piece of paper out of the way. It would be quite nice to have it, perhaps with some shadowing or darker colour behind it so the gold stands out on that one. I'm still considering putting gold in those lighter areas behind the leaves, but part of me is thinking that might be going a step too far. It could be fun with the other half of the leaf in gold as well. I don't know. I'm going to sit with that and see what happens. But I certainly haven't finished this because there is colour to add and shadow and highlight, but it's the start, it's the basis. Looking at it, I'm pleased with how I've used gold to pick out just a few areas. I haven't gone overboard with it. I'm also quite happy that I've left the black lines in. Something about them that define things. I like definition of borders and edges, don't I? So that suits me. I'm glad I chose this sage green pen to add pattern in this outer border because that really helped. That just it doesn't overpower and overwhelm those stars there, the 4 stars. So I'm quite happy with this so far. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's given you some inspiration. If you choose to draw along, that'll be fine. If you choose to use it and go, well, I don't like this border here, but I would have done this, carry on, do as you wish. But thank you ever so much for joining me. And thank you for all the subscribers, the new ones especially, you're most welcome. To my returning subscribers, thank you. To other people who return, thank you so much. New visitors, thank you. And for all the likes, the lovely comments, everything else, thank you so much. So take care for now, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Bye.